you got first place in the world's largest hackathon.
Yes.
What's that
Yeah.
like?
It hasn't sunk in yet. It hasn't sunk in. Even as I tell the story to people, it hasn't sunk in yet. I mean, it's like I was telling my fiance yesterday. I go, if you actually think about it, making $100,000, it's almost in my head easier than winning the world's biggest hackathon. To get like first place out of that many people was just, I'm still kind of, mind blown.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's, I mean, obviously a huge accomplishment and just very exciting. Um, I heard, so I was watching the live stream and I heard your family cheering in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, did you ever going in? I mean, what were your expectations, and did
I'll be
you have
honest.
any sense that you could win?
No, my expectations were like, if they give me $1,000, I'll be ecstatic. I'll be so happy if I can just get $1,000, because they send me an email saying that, hey, like, you haven't won, but you might have won, so we just need you to stick around for an interview if you do win, right? So of course, everything's going through my head of like what that could possibly mean and what I could possibly win. Didn't even cross my mind that I would be top 10, right? So as we're watching the awards, they keep, every time they show the slide of the winner, I'm expecting my name to come up, and my name's not coming up, right? So everybody was like looking at each other like, are you sure you won something? I'm like, yeah, I'm positive I won something, because they're like texting me now. But it's crazy because I was at a family reunion at the time, right? So that Saturday was like the big day for our family reunion. So this was like the calm before the storm. So like my mom's, she's running around. She actually called me that morning. She goes, I'm going to come pick you up so that way you can come help us, like, fold chairs and put up tables for the reunion. And I was like, I'm not going to have time to do that because I have to be at this thing at, I think it was like 1 o'clock. And ironically, I met her at the hotel. She had a van. So she picked up my close family. She picked up my sister, my cousin, two of my cousins, and we went to my other cousin's house, and she has like this downstairs area with this huge projector screen, right? So it was just perfect. So we're all watching this thing like a big old movie. And then they called me. They told me to like be in a quiet area for like the announcement. But again, they hadn't told me. So as I'm upstairs watching it, my mom's watching it with me. Everybody else is downstairs. So I'm a little bit ahead of them. So like I'm like shouting and screaming, and then now as I'm live talking to them, they're watching the delay downstairs, and then I can just hear them, kind of go crazy. So that was cool. It was perfect timing.
Oh, it's amazing that you're at a family reunion. That's really funny timing. I'm
Yes.
curious, so you had a sense that maybe you won something, but tell me about the moment. So, they give you like they read out third place, second place, and now you're like, huh. Like did you think like was there doubt like maybe I just didn't win anything? Like what was that
Yeah.
moment between like second
Yeah.
place and then first place you're just like I probably didn't win.
No, it's crazy how doubt works, because you can literally be watching something and still doubt it, right? It's like, I can't believe my eyes type of thing. So they they had me on a call, right? So like how we're doing this Zoom call, they had me on a call and they had me on standby. So they're like, when we call your name, you're just gonna go in and start talking. So there was like a break right before they started calling top 10. So I'm like, oh shit, I got 10th place. So like I was telling my mom, I'm like, because I was expecting like 1,000 or 5,000. So I'm telling my mom, like, oh shit, I think I got 10,000. So they call out 10th place. I'm like, oh shit, I got ninth. And it just kept going and kept going until they got to third place. I'm like, wow, these people are really about to pick me for third place. And it just kept going. And even when they picked second place, I was like, okay, I'm so confused because they haven't called my name yet, but they have me on live, but there's no way they're gonna give me first place. Um, and then boom, first place came up. Lost my shit. Uh, But dude, yeah, it was one of those things where it doesn't quite hit you all the way
That's
uh,
awesome.
until you sleep on it. You tell people about it. So
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about what it is that you made. It's called Tailored Labs, and just tell us about what it does, and I guess how you came up with it, and what was it like to use Bolt to actually make it.
so how I came with the idea was I was bouncing all these different ideas off of my head of like, I'm not working right now, so I want to build something, right? I want to build something that essentially allows me to either do it as a startup, but also have a chance to win the hackathon. And I had all these different ideas, and they just didn't quite fit in both those criteria. And I finally came up with
Hmm.
this when I was like, okay, this one's forward thinking enough to where it's like it's almost like out of reach, but enough to like maybe I can build it. So at first when I came up with the idea, I've actually had this idea for a long time now. It's like, complete AI video editor. We already have like Descript, right, that takes out the ums and ahs. We have Opus Clip that kind of takes your long form content and cuts it down into short form TikToks or whatever like that. But I was like, in comparison to Adobe Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, CapCut, we don't have anything that does like the actual AI editing portion, right? Because you still have a lot of editors out there that spend a lot of time editing. There's a huge difference between like nuanced storytelling editing and like a TikTok, right? Or a voiceover. So that was the idea. I was like, okay, is it possible to get AI to understand my video, chop it up into clips, and put it together? I know it's not going to be like perfect to start, but like at least to get the ball rolling, because these things move so fast where it's like you may have a model now that may not be great at video reasoning, but in a couple months, maybe a year, I mean, it may even get to the point where I'm able to raise money and go hire some AI researchers, and I'm the one that's building this AI editing model. Um, but anyways, that's how I kind of came up with the idea. The way that I built it with Bolt, so it's almost like, everybody has like the same icons, and everybody kind of has like the same layout of the landing
Yep.
page. Um, so the way that I built it with Bolt it was kind of tricky because I was using Next.js, and I was using version 15 of Next.js, and it was a little tricky getting it to work on Bolt, so I had to downgrade to 14 to get it working. Um, but my kind of like strategy was I've used like these tools before, and sometimes you'll get a bug in Bolt, and you'll ask Bolt to fix the bug. And it's like the button just like fix the error, and it'll go into a loop, and it can't fix it, and you're like using up all these
Yep.
tokens. Um,
Yep.
they've gotten better, but what I just realized was these tools are like amazing, but they're still like a very valuable skill in being able to debug, right? So it's like the people that are non-technical, they'll keep going until like it fixes itself. But it's like if you were technical and you could just go in and you realize that that bug is like one line of code, right? Or like one variable that's off, and you fix it yourself, you save yourself a lot of time, you save yourself a lot of money. But it's a nuanced skill. And since this is a vibe coding podcast, I would say, hey, if you're vibe coding, um, that is a skill that you may have to have. You may have to be able to go and start figuring out how do you read the stack trace? How do you find where that error like originates from? What kind of error is this? How do you fix it? Um, and I think that, these vibe coding tools are going to get to the point where they can debug. I think it'd be really cool if Bolt comes out with like a separate debug agent, right? That has like its own context and its own access to tools that can literally go through and debug it, as opposed to like having it all in the same context. Um,
Yeah. You make a really good point for me, the most amount of time that I spend building my projects is in testing and fixing problems. It's not really like
Yep.
adding or creating new things.
Yep.
And that is easily the most frustrating, infuriating part of the process. Sometimes I will spend an entire day or multiple days or many hours just trying to fix one part of the process of the product. And
Right.
that seems, I mean, that's my biggest bottleneck. Perhaps there are existing tools or techniques that I'm just not using that could make that process better. But often it's just simply going into the browser console, copy and pasting the errors. I'm curious, like when in your process in debugging, have you discovered any like, I don't know, not shortcuts is not quite the right word, but just like a better process for
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
quickly doing the
Yeah.
debug?
Yeah. So because I'm technical, what I did was every time you tell Bolt to, make a change, if you're working in a GitHub repo, it'll do a commit to your repo. So I also had it running locally, right? So I had it running in Bolt and I had it running locally. When you run it locally, you can go into the browser, open up the Chrome DevTools, and you can just add breakpoints. You can add breakpoints, you can add console logs, you can kind of see what's going on. And that's part of the debug process that, a lot of engineers already understand. What I would say, if you're going to use like the actual LLM to help you debug, I would say start from scratch, clear the conversation, make sure you get like copy and paste the error, but you tell it to basically go do the research on the code base before you make any changes. So like say, hey, don't make any changes, but go investigate why this error may be showing up. And then give me different solutions and then pick the best one. But also you have to like be very strict with it sometimes. I'm not exactly sure what prompts they use to kind of generate the code, but when you're prompting and you're debugging, you want to start from scratch and you want to tell like, hey, don't make any changes. I want you to basically go write me like a RFC, which is like a request for comments. I want you to go and do the research on why this bug may be showing up. Where do you think it's coming from? What are the possible solutions? But I don't want you to make any changes, but, give me like a top 3 of what you think solutions may be able to fix this. And then you just kind of go through and figure out and kind of talk with the LLM to kind of give it more context in the bug. And they're like, okay, once you kind of figure out what it may be, you tell it go ahead and try to fix it. But you have to be really strict. You say, don't make any changes that you aren't positive that it's going to fix this bug. And it's crazy because sometimes like I've had the same thing where you sit there for a day going back and forth with the bot trying to fix a single bug, and you just like get really pissed off. You just say, hey, stop making all these changes, just fix it. Don't come back until it's fixed, and then it'll go fix it. But I also would have to say one of the things that we can do as vibe coders is testing. So if you're not technical and you're building out these apps with vibe coding, one of the suggestions that I have is always start with a PRD, or basically a document that talks about what you're going to build, how you're going to build it. But also what you want to do is you want to tell the bot to say, hey, once we kind of have this discussion of how we're going to build it, what's being built, let's talk about the use cases. Let's talk about the user stories. Like a user should be able to click this button and then this shows up. They should be able to add this, delete this. And then when you have those user stories, you can say, hey, let's make sure we write tests for this, right? So let's write tests for this, because what I'm seeing is when you have the bot write the test and it kind of understands the user stories, it does a little bit better of a job, coding certain things out. But also you have those tests now, right? So when the test pass, when the test fail, you can kind of see, okay, which user flow did it break? Because sometimes it'll go in and it'll break a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay. So you said a lot. So first, you're talking about debugging, requests for comments. Don't change anything. I know. I share that frustration, like a similar experience of it's you're constantly, it feels like you're battling with it,
Yeah.
and it's going off and doing things that you don't want it to do. hopefully that doesn't happen too often, but sometimes it can get into this state where it just becomes a very frustrating experience. And then for me, it becomes a question of like my perseverance and how much time am I willing to sink into this, knowing that eventually I'll be able to get it to work, but it just sometimes requires way more time than I would prefer to fix it. Proactively asking it for testing, um, is that something that you found Bolt to be good at, or are you also using other tools as well?
I mean, Bolt is sufficient. If you ask it to write tests, it'll basically just add tests to like a test folder, and then again, it fits into the Git repo. You just you do a Git pull on your local machine, and then you just run the test. Um, and then also you can run the test. You can run tests inside of the Bolt console at the bottom.
Got it. And I want to dive into the actual product a little bit more.
Yep.
So the concept is you provide a bunch of footage and like videos that you made, and it'll just do a bunch of analysis and make an edit for you and save you time, hopefully. And that's, yeah. So clearly something that, any creator could benefit from. Have you, was this something that was this a problem that you experienced? Or do you make your own video content too?
Yep. Yep. So I started right after the hackathon. I started this 30-day challenge. I only got through 5 days. I started this 30-day challenge where um, I was going to try to get 20 paying customers. And what I found was, you know, even though I'm making this video editing tool, right, and I'm using my editing tool to edit my videos, um, the process was it was still time consuming, right? So one of the things that I added was to the product, I was like, even though people would tell me that they would like a rough draft, they were like, if you can just get me from 0 to 80%, I can do the rest. Like I can do the last like captions and stuff like that. Me as I guess, a wannabe content creator, I don't want to do anything, right? I don't want to sit there and drag and drop captions around. I want the whole thing done. Um, and those are kind of two different markets, right? Um, so there's a market in doing this hackathon, it kind of turning into like a startup. You have to do some market research, and it seems like there are a lot of different video editors out there, right? So you have video editors that are really professional, right? They do, short films, they do music videos, they do really good edits, and they need all of these features and buttons and keyframes, stuff like that. And then of course you have people that record on their iPhone and they just want to edit the videos in the phone. So that's kind of the market that CapCut has captured, right? So it's like all these creators and these editors all kind of have the same problem, but they're just using different tools to solve it. And I was like, okay, well, there should be some tool out there that can get me from 0 to 100 and can analyze a video and stitch it together and then output a video. And as I'm building it, I'm starting to realize why more people haven't built it. The technology is the technology is still very early, right?
Yeah.
Video understanding at an ML level, like at a machine learning level, is still pretty nuanced because one, it's very compute intensive, right? These models that analyze videos, they don't necessarily analyze videos; they analyze frame by frame, right? They basically transcribe it and they go frame by frame and they analyze it, which is essentially analyzing video. But, Gemini 2.5 is probably the best one. OpenAI still doesn't have a service for analyzing 20-minute videos yet. They still haven't done it. So it's like, how do you stitch all these things together and then put it into a product that works for the end user? It was tough.
I can only imagine. It sounds like an enormous challenge,
Yeah.
and great job for, tackling it and, getting something that, works. Um, someone told me that in the, like, I think on Vertex, that Google Gemini supports video as an input.
Yes.
Maybe I don't know if I haven't tried that. So, but is that
That's
available through the API or no?
Yep. So that's exactly what I'm using. And so I don't know if you were following on Twitter the day of the hackathon and the day after that my site broke. So basically, every time you upload a video, I send it to Gemini 2.5 Pro to get analyzed, right? But there's two different products. There's a Gemini API, and then there's Vertex. So I was using Gemini API, which had like a quota, right? I think the quota was like 21 gigabytes of video at a given time. It was my quota. And so many people came to the site and uploaded videos, I reached my quota, so nobody could upload videos, and it would get an error in the app. Now, Vertex is the enterprise version of that. Like, there is no limit, right? You just pay as you go. So if you want to upload 100 gigabytes of video, you just pay for 100 gigabytes of video, right? So they do have an API for it. So basically, you just upload the video to Google Cloud Storage, and then you just call the Vertex API to analyze the video. And then again, you just pay for what you analyze.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was actually not aware of any LLMs that could do videos input. So that's really cool that you're using that. Is there anything else like it?
Yeah, so there are a couple things. You have websites like Hugging Face that have there's a couple different models out there. There's like Video Llama 3 is what I use at first. So I got real technical at first, and this is where I spent most of my time. I wish I would have known that Gemini Pro had this, but I think they came out with it during the time I was building it, which is ironic.
No way.
Yeah. So what I did was I went on Google and I basically bought this GPU, and you log into the GPU, you SSH into the GPU, and you set up Video Llama, right? You download the model, you get the model running on the GPU, and then you basically put a server in front of the model, so that way I can call the model. Just like when you type in a ChatGPT, it sends a request to a server, the server runs a model, and you get your response back. One, it's very expensive. Two, it's very limited, right? At the time, I can only do 15-second chunks, right? So if I wanted to upload a 15-minute video and get an analysis, I literally had to split it up into 15-second chunks because the GPU wasn't big enough to handle anything more than 15 seconds at a time, right? So I quickly got off of that and I found Gemini. But to the best of my knowledge, I think all the available video analyzing models aren't as good as Gemini, or they're being used by companies like Pika Labs or what's another video generation? Runway. They have like their own. They are a AI research company, an applied AI research company. So they have their own internal AI researchers. They have their own machine learning engineers. They're building their own models, and they have their own training data set. So these are companies that they're not gonna give you the model, right? OpenAI just came out; they just open sourced their model. But as far as video goes, right now, it's just Gemini to my knowledge.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, okay, you mentioned GPT open source. Is this something that you've looked into? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I have not looked into it yet. I think they did it yesterday. So my MacBook, I mean, the fans turn on when I have more than 5 tabs open. So I know that I'm definitely not going to be able to download that thing and get that thing running on my laptop. Or maybe if I get a new laptop, I'll try it out. But I thought about this yesterday, and sorry if I'm just rambling. They can open source their model. Um, there's the competition is still it's still out there, right? Because the barrier is the hardware now, right? If you open source the model, the barrier now becomes the hardware. So regular consumers don't have hardware that can run these models. You still have to go either buy a huge GPU, a couple of GPUs, or you rent one from a cloud service. So it's like the cloud services, they're still going to be making money. Um, we haven't got to the point where we have models small enough to be inside of apps. Like I download an app with a model, right, where I can access it offline. Um, so I think it'd be really interesting what happens with these models. I think what I saw was all of those markets like healthcare, Department of Defense, they're going to be able to now use these models without sending information online, right? They can just use these models internally. So that'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, yeah. There's certainly more industries that require heightened security that this becomes more relevant for. Whereas, your average chat GPT user has no issue just sending data to those servers. I think that the trend of having something that is more locally available using your own hardware is very compelling. You're right in that it might take several years or more for that to become more practical. They do exist. They're just not as good as the ones that your frontier models that use call the servers. But I did try. I was able to download the 20B model
20,
on
20
my
parameter?
device.
Okay.
Yeah, and
How'd that work out?
I have a M1 Max 64 gigs of memory, so I can do that.
Yeah.
Most people don't have 64. Some people
Right.
have 128. Some people have 96, but that's very rare. That's pretty
Yeah.
rare. I would say probably most people have either 16 or 32 at this point. And it is, I mean, is that something like do you care about that? Like, is that like of interest to you, like to be able to run these models on locally, like either for personal use or, for your product?
As of right now, not really. Um, I see the benefit and I see the use case for that. But me personally, I have no problem using, the ones to the cloud. Um, and as far like as a product goes, most of the ideas that I have that I'm interested in pursuing are probably going to be, ideas that use the models as a provider. I'm trying to think of any scenario where it would really benefit me to build like a product around like a self-hosted model. Um, unless I have like my own model that I'm serving through an API, that would be the only thing that I could think of.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, it's less of a priority for me, although I am curious to play with the open source model from OpenAI that just came out for my own products.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, so you won the hackathon. You mentioned that you want to do this full time as a company. What are some of the next steps that you're taking? Like, how do you see the product evolving?
Yeah, so the next steps are fundraising. It's we're in a space that moves very fast, right? The products are moving fast, the AI models are moving fast. So the next step is fundraising and getting people to bring on to help me build this thing out as fast as possible and getting a market share as fast as possible. Now, the mistake that I made last time when I had an idea that was pretty forward thinking, I was a little bit too forward thinking, right? So it was hard to get in the market. It was hard to get my wedge in the market because it was still too forward, right? So it's like you still have to go through the process of user acquisition, and users are comfortable with that, with what they know, right? So if you just give them a video editor with no AI that works, but it solves their problems from CapCut, now you have them as a customer. Now you can introduce these AI features to them, right? So I think what's next for me is fundraising, bringing people on, but starting with a mobile app. So go develop a mobile app and try to get a market share, right? And literally just a mobile app that works. It is cheaper than CapCut. Everything people complain about CapCut, this one works. Same thing with captions. But trying to get that market share to where they edit videos, and they also have that pain point where it's like, okay, well, I'm tired of editing videos. The feature's already in the app, so I'll just pay for the feature. So it's learning the business stuff of trying to run a business that your product is a AI video editor.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I would like to do is get the product to the point where it markets itself, right? So people are putting out so many videos with AI, with my product, that people are like, oh, this is a really, really well edited video. It must have taken you hours to edit this. And they're like, oh no, it took me a couple minutes. And then they go download the app because it markets itself.
Makes sense. So going to mobile, competing with CapCut is kind of a tall order. I mean, that's a pretty popular app. I'm familiar with captions as well. I know they have some AI features too. So, okay, you won the hackathon. That's a huge, I would say, credential and like signal for investors. But how
Yeah.
are you thinking of the pitch right now? And maybe you've already had some conversations. And I mean, my immediate question, just from their from like putting on the investor shoes, like how are you going to compete with these other
Right.
products that they're it's certainly an enormous problem that if solved well, I can see that being a valuable business that I would want to invest in. But how do you like what's your angle on it?
Right. So the angle is that the market is big enough where if you solve the pain point, a niche pain point, then you're able to grab enough of the market. And what I mean by that is, even though that you have CapCut, you have captions, you have Adobe Premiere, you have DaVinci, you have Descript, you have Bling, you have all these tools, and people are still complaining. Why are we complaining if you have all of these tools, right? You should be able to put a video out,
Yeah.
and there should be no complaints. But the reality is the products are still products and they still have flaws. And if they still have flaws, well, what is the one thing people are complaining about the most? And the thing is like, am I going to sell them a luxury of AI video editing? So is AI a luxury to add captions and stuff like that? Or is it a painkiller? And the painkiller is time, right? It's just, I can edit the video on Descript and CapCut and stuff like that. It's like, I just don't have the time. And the time is the killer. So now you can apply the AI anywhere you want to. Captions, cutting, transition, storytelling. But it's like, let's take the AI and apply it to the pain point, which is time saving, right? So whatever they do the most that requires the most amount of time is where I'll attack first.
Cool. Yeah, well, I appreciate what you're doing as a creator, video editor myself. It takes time. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's something that I don't look forward to, and it can be somewhat fun and somewhat satisfying for sure. Once you're done, you're like, "Oh, I made that." And I think that there's an interesting point there actually, which is in something that I've brought up with other, people on this podcast around the way in which, okay, so AI saves us time, but then we lose out to a certain degree on the creative process or the satisfaction that we get from having done things ourselves. So it's not to put down the value of what you're creating at all, because I completely agree. Like, yes, please solve this for me. But how do you think about the flip side of it, where perhaps there's in the solving of the problem, we're also losing out on something that made the problem almost like fun in a weird way.
Right. Right. So the goal is for AI to do the things that you don't want to do, right? The
Yeah.
goal is to build, and to keep it to where you keep that creative control, right? You still want to be able to have that creative control of your storytelling, the nuances of how you edit, how you want to show certain things. So that's the goal. The goal is to like get it to a really, really, really good rough draft, right? And the way that I'm thinking about this is investors are going to ask, well, how do you compete with Adobe Premiere Pro? How do you compete with DaVinci? How do you compete with CapCut? The thing is like, I don't have to compete because they're already working in cahoots. People are already editing on CapCut and then exporting to somewhere else, then finish it up somewhere else. So it's like, I don't necessarily have to compete. I can say, okay, start with mine, do all the things you don't want to do, export it to CapCut, export it to Premiere, and finish and do all the things that you enjoy doing and putting your creativity, your final touch on it. That's like the next 0 to 6 to 12 months type of thing.
Great. Yeah. So you see it being compatible with the full ecosystem and flow of an editor. So you're not necessarily trying to exclusively own the whole thing. Of course, you want to get it as far as possible for the creator. That makes sense. You mentioned your app earlier, your previous concept product. You were too far ahead. Can you tell me what that was and what you meant by that?
Yeah, so in 2018, I called FedEx and I had a package that was supposed to be delivered. And I called them and I was on the phone for 45 minutes just for them to tell me that my mattress was too big to be delivered. I'm like, that's a 30-second conversation. That is, I called FedEx. FedEx has my number in their CRM. They know that the package wasn't delivered. They know why. And then whenever I ask, I say, why wasn't my package delivered? It just goes, queries the CRM, and it tells me. That should be a 30-second conversation. I had this idea back in 2018. So what I did was I built a chat bot over the phone that connects to your business systems. And now you can just let people call and like book appointments, for example, because I was meeting people that were on the phone all day booking appointments, but they had to run the business. I was like, okay, well, let's get a bot that just takes phone calls for you and books appointments. It connects to your calendar. It connects to your CRM. Any API call that you can make, the bot can do for you. So when I say it was too ahead of its time, what I mean was the market wasn't there yet, right? SMBs, enterprises, they weren't ready for that AI adoption just quite yet. Investors, when I told the investors about the idea, they're like, they said the craziest thing to me. And they say it till this day. They say, well, if nobody's doing it, there's a reason why nobody's doing it. And that's a red flag, right? Which is almost like as a creator, as like an engineer that has his ideas and then I'll go build them. In my head, I'm like, that is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, because there was a guy when the telephone came out, when Alexander Graham made the telephone, I don't know if it was in the 1700s or the 1800s, he came out with the telephone. And this guy, thinking he was so smart, he goes, everything that could ever possibly be invented has been invented today when the telephone came out, right? And that's how a lot of people still think. They still think, well, we're so smart, we've thought about everything, so if we haven't built it yet, it's not possible. So that's kind of the same scenario that I'm in now. It's like I had, one investor say, well, it's a red flag that nobody else is doing it, right? There's a reason why nobody else is doing it. But the answer to that is, in the way that technology grows, it doesn't grow linear. It grows on an exponential scale. So just because it wasn't possible 6 months ago doesn't mean it's not possible today. I mean, we're watching how fast these models are going. We're watching how fast this hardware is growing. We're in real time, exponentially, right? So what wasn't possible 3 months ago is possible today. So back then in 2018, it was hard because it was hard to pitch customers, so it was hard to make money. It was hard to pitch investors, so it was hard to get money. And it was like this thing where it was just bad timing. Now, if I would have stuck with it, I would have been way ahead of the game, right? I would have been in competition with OpenAI at that point.
Yeah, well, I remember there was a period of time around when you're describing of like chatbots were like the next big thing,
Chatbots. Yep, the
and
chatbots.
like Facebook was driving that, and this, but it was prior to ChatGPT, and
Yes.
like it, I mean, it seemed to work, but I don't. I mean, I guess I see a lot of chatbots on websites, but I mean now LLMs are the big thing, right? And not so much chatbots in the vein of that you're describing. But it's funny what you're saying about that feedback from investors. I get the intention behind what they're trying to say. It's like there's a reason, like it just means that it's like a hard problem to solve. It doesn't mean that you
Exactly.
shouldn't try and solve it.
Right. Exactly. And the thing
Yeah.
is, the harder the problem, the bigger the bucks, right? The harder the problem you solve, the more you'll get paid for it.
Well, that I mean, man, that sounds like a. I mean, we've all had frustrating phone calls with like tech support or like talking to businesses and just being on hold for hour. I mean, I can't tell like with Spectrum, internet, phone bill, that kind of thing.
AT&T, yep, I
Super.
know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. On a related thought, I had this call. I don't. Have you ever like had a call with an AI, with like a voice AI?
Yep.
So I had one that was like, I don't know what the technology was, but it was very low latency and very high quality voice. And I went in knowing that it was AI, like it was like I knew it was a chatbot, and it's like call me. I'm like, okay, I'll try this. It was like for networking. I think it was called Bordy, and it was so good where on like the second or third like response that it was giving me, I I was like, oh, I had a moment where like I thought maybe it was a human, and
Yeah.
I said something like initially I was like, you just tell me the questions. Like I was walking home and I was like, I don't have time for a whole long conversation. I'm like, all right, so just get to the meat of it. I wouldn't say that to a human, but
Right.
like I was like, kind of rude to it, and I was like, oh crap, are you a human? And I had to ask, and it's like, no, I'm an AI, and I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, that was a real like whoa moment for me because like even though I knew going in it was a chatbot, I still like I was like I had like a slight moment of like embarrassment if it was a human because like I wouldn't like kind of be I don't want to be rude to a human in that way. It's like an interesting
What?
like psychological I guess observation
Yeah.
where like I'm more comfortable treating something differently that I more poorly, that I know is not human versus an AI. And it is just kind of wild like okay, so like that's possible today to like have that experience, and so it seems like yeah the trajectory is like just to be like totally um like completely realistic. have,
Yeah.
have you
It's,
had
it-
like any experiences
it's
like
getting
that?
really good. It's getting really good.
Yeah. Are you doing any kind of voice analysis in your product?
No, not yet. Um, I do have an idea of integrating 11 Labs to like help people do voiceover because I watch voiceover TikToks all the time, so
Makes
I'm
sense.
sure that a voiceover feature for creators like that would definitely be useful. Um, where they can literally just say, "Hey, you already have my voice. You already know how I talk, right? Both like with the hearing, like the sound and like the vernacular. So you know how I talk. I'm just gonna upload a bunch of videos, and you give me like a 2-minute voiceover of my day yesterday, right? And so that may be one of the features I'll roll out.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Are you? So I know you're going to a mobile app and wanting to compete with CapCut. Are you targeting more like Gen Z creators versus someone that is trying to make like a full on short film or feature film? Like what's I guess what is the segment or type of video creation that you think is most suited for what you're making?
Yeah. So how I mentioned earlier that the different platforms tend to have different editing users, right? It's almost like a different market. So if I go for the mobile, I would market towards, like you said, the Gen Z, the content creators, the TikTokers, the Instagram, making that short form content on their phone. And then if I was to target the more professional, more longer YouTube short form video, short film videos, that'd be like the desktop app. Um, but those are two different markets. There's going to be a lot of market research that I'm going to have to do coming out with this app because part of it is, even though I have a really cool product idea that was a concept from a hackathon, now it has to turn into a viable business. And part of a viable business is knowing the customer, getting the customer to pay you, figuring out how much it's going to cost to get a customer, all those business things that you have to do when you run a business, which, come on the backside of like this really cool concept of an idea. So what I'm seeing now is when they made the announcement, everybody came to the website and it broke, or like certain things weren't working because it was a hackathon project and it wasn't like fully fledged out. I'm saying that it is still important to have it work. And so part of having it work is not having all these features that don't work, right? So I had like all these little features throughout the app that like weren't fully fledged out. Like I had this thing called like AI sort, where basically it'll sort all of your clips however it sees fit. I had another one was like AI search, where like you can search through your raw clips, where you say like, hey, 5-minute clip where I bust my ass on my skateboard, right? And it just pull out the clip, you just pop to the timeline. So I had all these little different features that weren't like fully fleshed out. And I was like, okay, well now, if we're gonna do this as a business, you have to roll certain features out the right way. So it's like, okay, let me just scale it back. Let me give them like the meat of it. Make sure that works for everybody. Get a lot of tests running. And then incrementally roll some features out, strategically to get more users and stuff like that. But, well, yeah, the hard part is building the business. It's almost like the easy part is the vibe coding. The hard part is building the business.
Yeah, it's funny how I think there maybe was the perception and reality that is, I mean, you can tell me, I mean, you have more engineering experience, that the engineering, the coding was the hard part. And now we have vibe coding. It's certainly not perfect, but now it's like the problems and the bottleneck shifts to other parts of the process, right? Getting
Yes, yes,
customers, doing customer
yes,
research,
yes. And another part
that
of
kind of thing.
bottleneck of vibe coding is deploying into production, right? I very quickly realized that there's a huge difference. And I've known this because I've worked on engineering teams and we work in production, right? We deploy things in production, depends on the company, every day, every 2 days. But there are dedicated teams to production apps, right? We see it all the time. There are people that are on call. There are people that, their whole job is to do, quality assurance before it gets into production, right? There are all these different steps that companies have to mitigate problems in production, right? So the bottleneck now, what I think maybe is a good opportunity for Bolt. I've never used Lovable or Bolt or any other vibe coding tool. Is we've kind of got the building of the products kind of there, right? Now there has to be a tool or some sort of process to help us really get into production and being production ready, right? That
Right.
includes
Yep.
air handling, that includes logging, that includes scalability, right? It's like, okay, you have a website, but this website also depends on some downstream services like AWS. Is that able to scale, right? But at the same time, it's like everybody doesn't need that. But if you do, if you want to get a product into production, I think that'll be a really, really cool service, right? Vibe deploying.
Well said. No, I
That'll be
completely
awesome.
agree. There's, it's one thing to make a quick prototype. It's a totally other thing to deploy a production product with customers that's stable, does everything you say that you need it to do, and it works well. And I think we'll see other niche companies start to fill in those gaps. So I think it's a good time to wrap up. This has been really great to chat and get to know you and your product. And where, so if people want to check out your product or maybe learn a little bit more about you, like where can they go?
Absolutely, man. They can go to tailoredlabsai.com and then check it out. Go ahead and sign up. Um, Upload your videos and try to get it to make you a first edit. I would recommend that you upload some sort of script or some sort of like flow of how you want the video to go. It just works better that way. If anybody wants to reach out to me personally, they can send me an email at Adrian at tailoredlabsai.com. I'm an open book. Anything you need from me. If you want to collab, let me know. But yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time, and yeah, best of luck in the fundraise. I know that's a challenge, but you have the wind in your sails. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening and watching. This has been another episode of Vibe Coding. If you want to check out more resources and news regarding vibe coding, go to vibe-coding.fm. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. I'll see you soon. Bye.